Welcome to the Inviting Shift podcast. I'm your host, Christina Smith, and I am here today with one of my clients, and she is going to talk about all of the work that she's done in the last year around external validation. If you are someone who craves the opinions of others, needs the validation and the confirmation from other people, and maybe you just want to tune deeper into your own self and into your own inner wisdom and intuition, this is the episode for you. Lara, my client, is going to talk to us about how she's done work in the last year over letting go of the external validation, whether that is fantastic feedback or criticism, and how she has tuned into what she truly wants and shifted the way that she's showing up. Beautiful. Well, welcome to the Inviting Shift podcast. This week, I'm really excited because we're doing something we haven't done before, which is I have one of my clients here who has been brave enough to come on and share with us what it is that she's been working on, the things that she's still struggling with, and any other questions she might still have for me. So welcome, Lara, to our show. Welcome, Lara.
Hi, Christina. I'm really happy to be here. I love sharing emotional work and the great journeys because honestly, I think we should normalize a lot of this. A lot of emotional work needs to happen out there in the world, and you have helped me a lot. And I really hope people understand that life coaching might be something they've never heard of before, might seem weird and different, but that's exactly what I needed because I've been in therapy a lot for a bajillion years, and I've been in support groups with the Woman Within, done lots of workshops, and just pretty much dived into every kind of self-help and emotional growth work that I can because I want to get better. And this stuff that you do with me is unusual and different and exactly what I needed. So I hope there are folks out there that give it a try.
Beautiful. Well, speaking of that, you've been a client for over a year now, so I know that you have made huge, significant changes in the way that you manage your internal and external conflict, how you show up in life in general, and how you show up for these relationships that have been challenging for you in the past. And so tell me a little bit from your perspective, what is it that you believe you've gotten out of the last year?
It's a lot of conflict that has come up with this volunteer group that I'm a part of. But I hear from a lot of friends that it's the same in any kind of volunteer group, whether you're in a church group or studying Spanish with people or ballroom dancing or, any
wine group. It doesn't matter.
Whether you're trying to discover the most perfect Italian wine there ever was, or if you're working together in a soup kitchen or canvassing for candidates out there, volunteer groups are tough. And I mean, they're great, and we want them to go out there in the world and do good things. And I have my conflicts in life have come up because of my experience in this one particular big volunteer group. And I have found that I needed to do a lot of work on my own to work out how am I going to really get along with these folks, many of whom are good friends that I love, and I don't want to just ditch it. A lot of people do. A lot of people just ditch and walk away, and sometimes that's the solution. But for me, I had so many loved ones, including my husband and my beloved sister. And we love doing this stuff together, and yet there are problems. So the way I have been working on this, especially, stuff that you've been helping me with, is a lot about judgment and my fear of judgment, and not just my fear of judgment, but how I react to other people judging me. And sometimes I want it because I want to be in a position where some special people can judge me and then judge me as good and have been accomplished in some areas that I work in so that I can go further with it and, climb up the ladder, so to speak. And I want to just do more of this volunteer work. So it's tough for me, it's tough when I have wanted to be judged, and yet there is deep conflict and, lack of communication and real problems talking to people about it and being understood. So there's so much that I had to work through around the topic of being judged.
Yeah, and I think for you and for many of us, this is not Lara alone by any means. There's a part of us that wants the outside validation, and yet we don't want to deal with the extra criticism, right? It's one thing to get feedback, but it's a whole different thing. We can take on that negative judgment so much harsher than we'll ever take on the beauty of that great judgment, right?
Exactly. And I've had both. I've had both sides of the fence. A lot of people say, wow, Lara, that's great work. Look at what you're doing. It's amazing. You're wonderful. And I'm like, oh, well, thanks. That's awfully nice. And then I have other people say, you are selfish and you are a horrible person and you do not deserve to be around here. And, oh, God, not taking it on, not allowing either extreme to come into my heart and make a rock in my stomach has been so hard. And my big hobby is I'm an actor. I love being a hobbyist level actor. I love theater. It's so much fun. And, I have no dreams and desires to be truly excellent at it. I just want to do it for fun. I want to, and it's very different from the work I do in front of a computer every day for my day job. So it's a relief and it's wonderful fun. And yet there's a part of me that's always looking for that external validation. Am I doing it right? Am I making them laugh? Am I going to get the applause? Am I doing it right? Is it okay? And, so my journey has been a lot about putting it all into perspective and using the stuff that's good that I need and not taking on the stuff that is really would really bring me down.
And that's the challenge, I think, of working in any large group, right? I mean, that's what's going to happen. Everybody's got their own positions on how it should go or, what should work out, what the expectations are. And I think in general, most groups, everybody really wants a positive outcome. Yeah. It's just they all have different ideas of how to get there.
Yes, and how to do it.
Yes, exactly. And so that's where we start falling in. And the sad thing is that many of us start isolating because we get into these conflicts, but not you. You are not really a conflict avoider. Like there's parts of you that don't want to get into conflict. I get that. None of us really want to be in conflict. But there is a part of you that even when you get the negative feedback or, there's just conflict of how it should get done, that you keep showing up and trying to resolve it. And I think that that's really, really a beautiful thing. You don't step out of the light just because you've had these conflicts. You really want to work them out, which is, I think, amazing and why you have so many great friends from this organization and all through your life, because you really don't step out of the spotlight, which is one of the most things that I admire out of you, is that you don't want to step out of the spotlight. You want to figure out, how can I be there and either manage my emotions around other people or manage these relationships in a good way. And that's what I think you've really been working on is what is that relationship between getting feedback and being dependent on other people's validation.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. And managing is the key word there, managing it, because I did start from the perspective that's on the opposite side of the spectrum for most people. Like you're saying, most people isolate, go away. Like I said before, they ditch being in an organization if they can't find the joy in it. So I actually, I was on the other end of the spectrum, I wanted to dive in and say, work it out with me. Come on, get to the table. We're going to talk this out. Come on.
And if they're sitting there going, Lara is so pushy. Yeah. I mean, you with that attitude is like just compounding it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So even if my intentions were positive, like I want to be in relationship with you, I don't want to walk away. I want to work this out. Being too, I don't know, overly enthusiastic about that got me into trouble.
Yeah, because there are times where we just need to take a breath and allow the other person the space that they need, right? I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. You do so much growth work that you process like almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
I mean, except for the emotional charges sometimes, you process immediately and you're like, no, I want to work this out. I want you to hear my truth. I want to hear your truth. I want to figure out how we can work this out. And for other people who have never done this emotional growth work, just looking at the feelings, I mean, like they're like, I have to shove this anger aside before I can even have a conversation with you. And that's literally what they do is they like shove it aside and they don't actually deal with it. Where you've been dealing with a lot of these triggers for years through your therapist, with me, with lots of different groups. And so you're not scared of your emotions. You're like, no, let's get into it right now. Let's figure it out. But for them, for other people, it may be more challenging and they're kind of late adopters. They need a moment to pause and think. And so sometimes we have to give that space even when we don't want to, because we know that we're likely to get better results if we give them space first, right? And that's really what we want in the end.
Your key word there is results. Because even though I was like, I do emotional work, you got to do it too. Come on, we're going to go together. We're going to get this done. I mean, it still shut people down. Didn't want to come with me on that journey. Even if they liked me, they were like, God, that's a lot. And so you're right, space and trusting the other person that they are going to do their own emotional work in their own way, whatever works for them, so that the result is the two of us coming together. And I had to really figure out, again, management of my expectations and my own energy, and not just give them everything and say, please, here's my whole heart on a platter, and I want to work things out with you, and you mean a lot to me, and so come on, let's do it. That did not.
Then that started making you feel resentful. Because you're like, I'm offering my heart on a sleeve here. I'm trying to be the good, connecting, loving person and kind and compassionate. And you're not treating me that way. And yeah, we have expectations for other people sometimes as if there's some kind of magic that they're going to see it exactly the way that we do. And unfortunately, that's not that way. I mean, I'm sure that you've even experienced that there were times where you really wanted to work it out with your whole heart, and that other person just was not willing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had some of those. I've had lots of those where they just they didn't want to, and they didn't want to do it that way. And I had to let go and say, okay, it's just not going to work out. And I still believe maybe someday with those relationships, there might come a time when, you know, me being quiet and open to whatever their thing is, they might find a way to express what they need to me. And God only knows when that day would come. I don't know. I'm open to it. But yeah, it is heartbreaking when I want to put my heart on a platter in front of somebody and say, love me, connect with me, please. And they just shut down and they're like, I can't do that. So giving space for somebody else to figure out what they need to do, how to process their feelings, how to manage the meat of the conflict between us. It is hard work, and they're always different. You know,
and for you, I mean, for us on this side of it, right? Like, because I've been there too, where I really wanted to work things out, and they just were like, isolate, right? Because of whatever emotional triggers they're going through. And I think one of the things I've been trying to remind you in the last year is that reaction that they're having is about them. It's not about us. I mean, we may have been the ones who brought the trigger, but that trigger is theirs to manage. Just like your desire to be in connection and loving connection with a lot of people is your desire, right? I mean, that's not everybody's going to fall for that, right? Not everybody wants to be in deep, loving connection with other people. And so that's about you. And so, and I believe that this is the focus of my program is how do you want to show up? So that if Lara is trying to connect with somebody who is like, nope, not having it, whatever, all we can really be responsible for is how did I show up? Did I show up in a good way? And that's what Lara's been working on is this is what we're hearing is that before it would have been like, well, let's just work it out right now, blah, 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 which just put all the pressure on them, right? And now you're like, oops, I can take a breath. I can sit back and try to figure out what is the best way to connect here in a way that's going to be good. When can I connect that might be good? Instead of, just expecting them to kind of be on our terms. So, and then regardless of what happens, whether they want to connect or not, Lara can say, well, I showed up in a good way. I showed up in a way that I feel really proud about how I showed up. So if they're not digging what I'm dishing out, then maybe they're not for me.
Yeah. And that maybe they're not for me is hard for me to accept.
Yeah.
Because I would just want to connect. I'm a hardwired extrovert. And I want to connect with people. My archetype that is my superpower is my lover. I make friends really easily. I connect with people constantly, and that's where I live. And so for somebody else to say no, it has been heartbreaking. And I've been learning how to not take it personally, how to not let it in my heart that deeply, and recognize something's going on for them that's not a match, and it's not me being a bad person. It's something going on for them that is not a match for me, and that's okay, and it has to be okay. It's not easy. Oh God, it's hard.
No, it's not easy when you want to connect and somebody else doesn't, for sure. And again, we can be proud of how we showed up. And I think one of the things that we also went over for you was you starting to focus on the people who are showing up for you. Because when we first started working together, they were like, okay, well, they're already on my team. I'm still trying to gather people who may not be convinced. Instead of being like, I have this great team of support behind me, all these people that love me. And so what happened when you started focusing on that instead?
It was like magic. I don't know if you remember the collage I made. You had suggested to me to make a collage, or at least get out a whole bunch of pictures of the inspiring people in my life, and it was just like magic. I went online to just look for pictures of people, and I went on Facebook to look for pictures of my friends that just the people that really hit me deep in my heart, where when I look at them, I feel like I'm blossoming. And then there were, a handful of celebrities that do that for me. Michelle Obama and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Brene Brown were among them. And I added your picture in there too, because I do find you inspiring. Yes. And so when I just was playing on the internet with pictures and making a little, MS Paint collage of all of them. It was like magic doing that and just looking at them. And I put that all over my computers. It's on my wallpaper, and I look at it all the time, every day. And sometimes I just sit there and stare at it. And it's wonderful. It just feels so good. And when I think about all the other people that are, let's just call them downers, they're people that aren't really connecting with me. They're not matches. I wonder, why would I spend so much of my time and energy trying to get them onto my team, trying to connect with them when they really just aren't clicking? And I've got so many wonderful, beautiful connections out there with people who just love me and think I'm so much fun to be with, and we click and we do fun things together, and we can sit around a campfire and just yabber until 1 a.m, which I love doing.
And what would you rather focus on, right? These people who are downers and uninspiring, or these people who really lift you up and have been for you, there for you in the past?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
you. It's really beautiful what happens when we shift our focus, because I think so much we get stuck because we are stuck looking at what we don't want, and we're going, how do I change this? How do I change this? How do I change this? But we never ask ourselves, well, what is it that I do want? Well, I want people who are going to love and support me. Where do I have that already in my life? Right? I mean, and there's so many places. And once we start looking, I also remember that when you were starting to do this, you were writing letters. There was one to an aunt of yours. There was like some other letters that you were, just heartfelt. Hey, thanks for being there for me in the past. You really helped me and supported me. And I mean, and doesn't that feel so much better? Like, I'm getting chills thinking about it, because that feels so much better than sitting here and journaling about how that rotten person said that rotten thing to me. And, oh, I'm so mad about it. Right.
Yeah. I did that. I took action on that. It was just a little while ago. I was driving somewhere, and it was like a half-hour drive, and I was bored. And I picked up the phone and I called my friend, and I told her, I just want to tell you. I was going to leave a message on your voicemail, but she picked up. I said, I just want to tell you, I find you wonderful. You're inspiring to me. I love how we just click together. We have a lot of fun together, and you can tell me when I am missing something, when I am not really behaving in the way I prefer, and when I'm kind of going off the path. She can say this to me. She's like, that was not your best moment, Lara. And I will listen to her and go, okay, I'll think about that. So that's the good feedback that may not feel really good in the moment, but since it's coming from somebody that I love and trust, and I know she wants to lift me up and be in happy places together, that felt wonderful.
Yeah.
So
good to have someone who's going to tell you have toilet paper on your shoe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. She'll do that and say, like, really, it's there. Go get it.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, but that's the difference between like us getting focused on those really negative comments that we know aren't really about us, and having these really close connections that we can say, hey, look, if I'm being a jerk, just tell me I'm being a jerk. I mean, I don't think there's a better friend in the world than the one who will be like, Christina, you're losing it right now. Just go take a breath. You're fine, and really get me to that grounded spot again, rather than, so many, I know even I'm ashamed of it too, growing up, watching people do things and not wanting to say anything so I didn't upset their feelings. But if it's coming from love, right, it's really setting up those conversations that I know this is coming from love, and this is what I'm seeing. Beautiful.
Exactly. And it's so different coming from my friends that I know want me to grow in the direction I want to grow in. And I know they love me and I trust them. And if they tell me some constructive feedback, it is a whole different world from when these people who do not click with me say things like, you're being condescending. And I want to say, really? You sure about that? It just...
You sure that's not a shadow you're seeing in me? Mirror behavior or something?
Yeah, so when the people who don't click with me want to give me constructive feedback, and that's what they're calling it, and they're telling me things that are wrong about me. Before, years ago, I hung on to that like a drug. I was holding on to this thing. Okay. They're saying I'm bad. They're saying I'm condescending and I'm pushy and I'm bossy. Okay, God, I have to deal with this. Okay, come on, tell me more. And I put it up on Post-it notes around my computer, and I would journal about it, and I would try to talk to them about it, and I would try to dive into it deep and the bottom line is they were not on my team.
Well, and then you were all focused on the wrong thing. Like, here's all of my weaknesses. Let me focus on this and journal about it every day, rather than seeing the balance, right? I'm not trying to say we're trying to snow ourselves to say like we're all 100% perfection and that's beautiful. What I'm saying is that when we get so focused on the negative that there's no balance to it. I mean, you have like 98% gifts, and then we're like, oh, but here's this 2% that's not perfect, and I have to make it perfect because that person thinks I should. Yes. When there's people like me who are like, bossy, that sounds like a quality that I like. I mean, it's useful sometimes, right? So some of these things are like we have to discount them sometimes coming from other people, because we also know that could be about them. They could feel like when they speak up that they're being bossy, and yet they're not being heard enough because they're afraid of being bossy.
Exactly.
And so, and so we have to remember that's their stuff. I get to show up as bossy as I choose to. Hold on for a short sponsored message by Christina Smith Coaching. If you are looking for your strengths, like Lara has been looking for her strengths, the superpower quiz is the one that you want to take. You have an archetype that is your superpower. Lean on it, love it, find out what it is and how you can use your strengths rather than focusing on your weaknesses. The quiz is below, and it'll give you some really great information and some things that you can do to balance out those superpowers. I hope that you enjoy it. And that's the important thing about intentions. And I know that you have set some intentions. So what are your intentional words in life?
Oh, okay. These are my core desired feelings.
How you want to show up.
Yes, I have 3 Post-it notes that are up on my computer right now that I'm looking at. My first one is, I want to be a master connector. And that doesn't mean just connecting with everyone in the world willy-nilly. That means being a master of connecting, so that I know when I can connect with people, when it works, when it doesn't work, and to step back, when to put extra effort in, when to not put extra effort in and let it go. And, when to let things into my heart and when to keep distance. So and boundaries, can we see boundaries with a B? Boundaries. All of that in my toolkit as a master of this connection I want to have with people is very different than the way I used to be years ago, where I just wanted to connect with the whole world and said, please, everybody come here, connect with me, be my friend. And
I also see it as part of how you connect to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you are connecting, this master connector is like connecting to your own intuitive wisdom and going, this is somebody who deserves my attention, and this is someone who doesn't. Like, this is who's going to get my affection and my energy. And, that person I can say hi to, but there's no intimacy going to happen there.
Yeah. And connecting internally is a new thing for me that you've helped me with a lot. And a lot of it comes from how do you say that? Visualizations.
There you go.
And I've got new characters in my cast of characters in my head that help a lot. I mean, my inner child is this intense little girl who was screaming all the time and absolutely infuriated with everything in the world. And now we have other ways that she can be. She can be relaxed. She can be sleeping. She can be what was the word? Judgmental of me. She can come back and go, well, really? Huh? And
we discussed how, like, you weren't protecting that inner child for a long time, and now you've been visiting her a lot more and gaining wisdom from her. I think one of the reasons she was screaming is that you were pouring your heart out to everyone and then feeling like abandoned or isolated by some of those people who weren't willing to connect in the way that you wanted to connect. And so she was feeling really unsafe and unheard. So of course she's screaming, because that's all a child knows to do when they're not being heard, right? And so you've been taking really good care of her, so she stopped screaming, didn't she?
She did. I had one beautiful breakthrough moment that was actually in therapy. And so I think it was a weird moment that it was the click in some therapy session a bunch of weeks ago, where I came to this realization that I have everything I need to make my own decisions about how I run my own life. And I do not need to be dependent on these external voices from other people who think they know me and know what's good for me. And the moment that I said, no, I've got this, I have done enough emotional work. I have done enough work in my whole life to get my act in gear. I have my tools. I have my support network. I know where to go when I need to get help on various things. And I've got enough wisdom built up in my head. Like somehow or another, I hit the top of the thermometer. Whatever it was in that moment, I said, I've got this.
That's enough. I don't need this. I don't need the validation anymore. I mean, it's great if I get confirmation, but I don't need validation.
And the little girl just relaxed. She chilled out. She was not yelling. She wasn't even judging and being persnickety with me. She was like, oh, okay. All right. We can do that. And
like you finally heard her.
Yeah. It was weird. Good, but weird. Weird and good.
Well, isn't that beautiful? And I think that this is a natural thing for extroverts. So, you know, introverts, we do a lot of our processing internally. Doesn't mean that we don't seek outside validation, but because extroverts get so much of their energy from outside validation or just outside connection, that it just becomes part of it, right? That they have to talk out their problems and get feedback and all of that stuff. And we're not saying that you can't do that. I'm sure Lara still gets feedback from her friends, from her circle, from her therapist, from me. And yet at the same time, she gets to choose what she goes with. Because there's times where I offer you things and you're like, I don't think that fits. And then I trust that your inner wisdom knows what fits and what doesn't fit. Because I know you. I know you're going to do the hard things if they're put in front of you. But so that extroversion, if you're listening to this and you are an extrovert, just be aware how often that you're going to someone else for that validation. Like, is this the right thing to do? I'm like the opposite. My trauma was that it went the opposite, where I grew up alone all the time, and I learned that it was actually safer being alone. So I became very independent and like, I don't want anybody. So my hard thing is actually getting the positive, you know, not just the positive, but like the feedback from those friends who tell me the toilet paper's on my shoe, because I even have a hard time with the positive feedback. With the positive feedback too, just because like I feel like I have to complete the project before I can hear anybody else's voice, which is just as, you know, just as harmful to me, because I also don't get the feedback the ideas that I could ahead of time. I'm kind of like, let me just go do it on my own and then see the fire, and then I'll put the fire out.
Yeah, I learned a lot about the different ways extroverts and introverts kind of do their own emotional work with my sister, who is a genius and an angel and a saint. And I will, you know, I'll say that till my dying day. She does a lot of her own emotional work too, and it's just from a different perspective.
It looks different. Yeah.
Yeah. And the two of us doing it together has been such a gift in my life. So,
yeah. It's always helpful when people around us are doing their work too. And that, I think, is the struggle that you've had in this organization, is that this organization that you have struggles with is an organization that's not based on personal growth. It's based on more fun and play. And so, you know, people aren't necessarily on the same page. And sometimes that can alone be so much. So if you, oh, I'm sorry, tell us the rest of your desired feelings, because we got off the track.
I have more intentions. There's 3. You made me boil it down to 3, and that's okay. So Master Connector is the first one. The second one is electrically creative. And that happens when I connect with those people that just click, and we have creative juices that just flow, and cool, fun, amazing things happen, and I can feel it. It's
synergy.
It's something that I can't generate on my own. It's something that happens with other people, and electric is the best description I have for it. And I tell you, I do that when I do improv comedy with my friends and some comedy theater stuff. When we're in the zone, we are there, and it's just joy and bliss in my life. So I know that stuff, and that is what I want to experience in my life. I want to do that forever, always.
Yeah. What a beautiful thing to focus on, right? And which is the point of intentions. What's your last one?
Last one is be true to myself.
Mm.
And there's a kind of subtext to that. When I am true to myself, I feel free. Mm. And that is the feeling of not taking to heart everything that other people say about me, good and bad. It's that feeling when I said to myself, I've got this. Mm. I know what I need to do in life to be happy one way or the other. I got this. I don't need these other people to be claiming that they know better. They know what's good for me. They know what I need to do. Mm-hmm. And being true to myself is hard sometimes.
Yes.
When I get kind of, when I'm swimming in these words of other people, whether they're good or bad or whatever their stuff is.
Especially when they come with an emotional trigger, right? I mean,
that's bad. So the focusing on what's real for me and taking, with a grain of salt, what other people say one way or the other makes me feel free, where I am not beholden to other people. I'm not saying, yes, whatever yes, ma'am, whatever you're saying, I will do, ma'am. That does not work for me. And I feel free, and I'm capable of that now, and I wasn't before. Yeah. And I couldn't give you a date about when that changed. Yeah. But it was certainly, a couple of years ago, not that long ago.
Yeah. I mean, I could even tell you last year when you would go to these events for this organization that you are in, it felt like so much stress, right? Like you were walking in there going like with the armor, putting all the armor on, going, I'm ready to fight. Should somebody come up to me? Like very warrior energy, which is very interesting because that's not I'm not saying you can't be a warrior, but you are so much a lover by default that I was like, that can't be comfortable for you. I mean, could you imagine some like lover, like some soft person, and they're putting on all this heavy armor instead? And so if you're listening, this is why we come up with intention. And Lara just gave us her intentions. The intention is, though, that's how she wants to show up. That's what she wants out of the situations. When she goes to these events, she wants to feel these ways. And so what she's doing is saying, okay, if I want to feel this way, how can I show up this way? Mm-hmm. And so if she shows up as the master connector, electrically creative, is that what it is?
Creative. Mm-hmm.
And true to herself, she knows no matter what happens, she's going to feel good about how she showed up, which is really the only thing that she can really, truly control. She can talk to these people till they're blue in the face if they are not willing to talk to her or work things out or, be connected to her. She can't do anything about that, but she can make sure that she is a master connector, that she's electrically creative, and that she's true to herself. Those are things that she can control. So if she shows up like that and people want to poo-poo her, then she's like, well, they're poo-poo people. I don't need to be around them then. That makes sense to me. So that she has something else to focus on going into these events without going, oh, I wonder if that person's going to be there, what they're going to say, or what that person will say, or how this is going to go. She doesn't have to be anxious about any of that stuff because she knows that she can show up true to herself, be connecting, be loving and creative, and she is going to feel good about how she shows up regardless of how those people show up, which I think has been like one of the biggest gifts in the last year, at least from what I've seen about how you show up and how much less anxiety you seem to have when you show up. You're just like, nope, I'm just not talking to that person today. I'm not involving myself in that conflict because I'm here to connect and be creative and be true to myself.
Yeah. And I did that recently. I went to an event and I said, I'm going to focus on my friends. I'm going to focus on my loved ones and my creativity. Because if I had ditched if I had ditched and walked away and said, I'm not doing this anymore, I would have missed opportunities to be creative and connected with my loved ones. So if I would miss that, let's go
and to play with them. I mean, that's what you go to these events for, is to play. And I think, you know, now that you've been playing more, that inner child is like happier because she's like, oh, you're not focused on all that negative garbage anymore. We can actually get out and, you know, have fun and do what we actually wanted to do and connect to the people that support us and love us. I mean, that's pretty magical.
Yeah. It's not easy because I do feel tempted to go back into the darkness with the people that don't connect with me, that don't really want to be around me. And I do still feel tempted to want to go back and like fix it, make it better.
Well, that's easy. That's your default, right? So Lara grew up being a people pleaser and wanting to like serve other people, make other people happy. So that's our default is, yes, would we love everybody around us to be loving and happy and wanting to connect with us? Absolutely. And that's just not the way that life goes. Not everybody's going to like us. Just like you said, you can do one performance and you're going to get rave reviews, you're going to get complaints, you're going to get feedback. I mean, you're going to get the whole gamut, and we're not here to please everyone. If we can please ourselves, that's great. And the fact that you please other people, that's fantastic. But everyone's not coming along on anything. I mean, if you just look at the state of our country and politics, no one's agreeing on everything, right? We're all going to have different judgments. And that doesn't mean it's about you, right? It just means that they might have stuff that they're seeing in you that they're not liking in themselves. So we should wrap up. I just want to ask, what's one thing you'd like to share with the podcast, the Pod Squad? What would you like to share with them? One big lesson.
Doing the hard work is worth it.
I like it. Yeah.
It is hard. It's hard. It's not easy. And I feel like I have so much of my life better now, happier, less anxiety, less worry, less stress, less cortisol. All of that is lesser, and it's not magic. It's not like Christina Smith is a magic magician from Gryffindor that will make it all better.
I wish.
Yeah. But coaching and being by my side, having been down the road, some yourself with some really good ideas. It's not magic, and it's not easy, and it's hard, and it is worth it.
Yeah. So, yeah, because even though somebody could still say something to you and it could hurt your feelings, you don't get nearly as triggered as you used to. It's not days on end where you're thinking about it and mulling it around, and like, it'll be like, I mean, I remember that last time somebody said something to you, and in the moment you knew that's not about me. That was like a huge thing, right? A huge thing for you to recognize in the moment that person's anger, that's not really about me. They're just going through something.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it in the moment until like a day later. I'm like, wow, that person actually yelled at me, and I didn't react to it. I was like, oh, okay, they're angry. Yeah. And there's something going on for them. It's not me.
And it's crazy because in the past it would have been gone on for days or weeks and been like become this like war of the roses, right? And now you're just like, I'm not even getting involved in that because I'm here to connect, I'm here to be creative, and I'm here to be true to myself.
Exactly.
So, lovely. Thank you so much for coming on and being brave and sharing your stuff, because this is stuff that everybody goes through. I know that there's a lot of women who are wondering, how do I make friends? Well, sometimes it's work. Sometimes it's really, going through, what is this about for me? Did that person really try to hurt me, or were they going through something? Like, this is how relationships work, and they can be really, really challenging. But what Lara has said and has learned is that if we do the work, we can let go of things quicker, so that the triggers, when they do come up, they're lighter, and we can go, I know you're abandonment, and I'm not being abandoned right now, right? This person just has a different agenda than mine, and that's okay.
Yep.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you, Christina. I really do hope that listeners decide to do some work, dive in, get some stuff done. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be everything. Just get some stuff done and get it better. And you are a very good helper in that.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, everybody, that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to get the benefits of coaching just like Lara, you can apply for the Confident, Connected, and Impactful Coaching Program. It can be a private or a group coaching. Our group coaching is a maximum of 4 women in each group, so you'll have really close connections and support from other women. I hope that you'll consider checking out the program. The link is below, and come set up an application call so that we can see if the program is a fit for you. Hey, one more thing. When we are all more confident and full of self-love, we can act more intentionally and mindfully. What would a world like that look like? I want to know. One way that you can help me with this vision is to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps more than you know, and it's just a few clicks to help me create a more beautiful world. And as always, remember to be gentle with your humanness.